So we're about a week away from the Nintendo Switch's launch, and I think a question on a lot of people's minds, including myself, is will the system fail? Because it is a question that is valid, it is something that needs to be asked at this point, given the very evident failure of the Wii U to grab an audience. I'm not saying that it was a bad system. I enjoyed a lot of the games. There were some really good games on there. You know, to name a few, Donkey Kong Country Returns, Tropical Freeze, you had Smash Bros, Smash 4, you had Mario 3D World, you had Bayonetta 2, Wonderful 101, and so many other great games that were just fantastic games. And I feel that didn't fail in terms of quality software, but it did fail in grabbing an audience and in a multitude of other instances, which I'll get into when talking about the Switch. One hurdle that the Switch needs to get over, the launch lineup. Now, the launch lineup is meager, to say the least. Honestly, all I'm looking at right there in terms of like games I'm actually interested in is stuff like you've obviously got Breath of the Wild, which is on the Wii U, but I don't know exactly how many people will be purchasing that on the Wii U, considering, as I said, the small install base of the Wii U. And I think a lot of people have just packed up their Wii U and just said, you know what, that's it, I'm calling it, it's done. You also got 1-2 Switch, which I think should have been a pack-in title. I don't know why it's sold separately at full price, or maybe it's slightly cheaper, but still, it's not worth the full price. It's something that is like a Wii Sports type of thing for a Nintendo Land, even less than like a Nintendo Land, where it's just like showing you some functionalities of the system, and seems like a good party game. Bomberman R looks really good. Finally, a new Bomberman game. Konami making games again, interesting. However, it's way too expensive. It's 40 something pounds over here, which I think is I think that's twice as much as most people would be willing to spend on a new Bomberman game in 2017. So yeah, other than that, I can't really see any other games that people would be really interested in, or at least I would be interested in. I know Japan has a lot more launch titles that they're kind of spreading throughout the year. So if we look at the year of the Switch, like from now until, let's say, 2018, it's looking rather strong. They're spreading a lot of things out. I hope it's going to be at a pace that makes sense. I hope we're not going to see a Wii U situation where there was a period with the Wii U where we didn't see a game for like 4 months, which that can't happen again. You can't have a situation like that happen again, because that's one of the many reasons as to why the Wii U, I think, failed, was because of the software. There were so many months of drought. I think the maximum amount of time that passed was about 4 months, if I remember correctly. And in 2016, if you think about it, the only games that came out were Pokken, Paper Mario Color Splash, Sharp FE, Tokyo Mirage Session, the Fire Emblem, Shin Megami Tensei crossover, Star Fox. And that was it. Those 4 games for the whole of 2016. They need to have a steady release of games, and I think this year of games is quite strong. I mean, you've got Mario Kart, you've got a brand new Mario game, you've got a brand new Splatoon, you've got Zelda, and you've also got a few other titles as well, a few other third-party stuff like I Am Setsuna, Puyo Puyo Tetris. You've got brand new stuff like ARMS, for example, and Slipper Clippers. So it seems like it's pretty strong for its first year, and I think if they keep it strong like that, and if they have games released in a pace that makes sense, I think it'll do well. But it could be a hurdle to gain interest in the system, because people might not be interested right away. They might wait months or maybe a year from now till when they feel that there are enough games, which is valid. But at the same time, you want to bring in new people, and you want to bring in players that may have been alienated by the Wii U. So in regards to the price of the system, I think the price isn't too bad. I think $250 or like £200 around that mark would have probably been the sweet spot, I think, in my opinion. But $300 to $80 over here pounds isn't too bad. I think that's okay. But if it was cheaper, I think it'd probably been a sweeter deal. I do think maybe that they may reduce the price maybe later down the line, but the price itself for the system isn't too bad. Where it becomes iffy, I think, is the price of the accessories. The Pro Controller, the Joy-Con separately, the dock, which is like $90. I forget how much it is in the UK. I'll already flash up all the prices on the screen. It's way too expensive. A lot of that stuff is really, really expensive, especially for a Pro Controller, which is like $70. I think it's £50 over here, which if you look at the DualShock 4, that's around 30-ish, give or take. Same with the Xbox One's controller. That is way too expensive for just a normal controller, because some people just want that. Some people don't want the Joy-Con set up. Some people don't want to hold it as like a handheld. Some people just want a normal standard controller that they're used to and that has regular buttons on it and that they can play with. The Joy-Cons seem to be a decent substitute for that, but sometimes you just, as I said, you just want a regular normal controller, and the price for that is going to turn a lot of people off. It's turning me off from purchasing that stuff right away. I'm probably just going to wait until the price drops, or maybe not even bother, which is a shame, because if I want more controllers to play with friends, then, you know, that's going to be an issue, and I feel a lot of other people are going to see that as well as being a problem. This is kind of a multifaceted discussion to have. The online subscription service. Now, I'm going to kind of go a little bit off topic here for a second. Pro Jared, who's a really good YouTuber, I highly recommend him, and I'll pop the link to the video that I'm talking about in the description. He had an interview with Reggie Fils-Aimé when they had the Nintendo Switch reveal event in New York, and basically one of the questions that came up was in regards to the Wii U and what they did differently to attract third parties, and what they did differently to, you know, make sure that third parties are consistently coming out and games are consistently coming out. So Reggie said there are two big problems that they had with the Wii U. One of them being the developer environment for the Wii U was very difficult to program for. It wasn't user friendly. It wasn't something that could be easily programmed for, which they feel that they've rectified. Well, he said himself, and a lot of developers have come out and said that, you know, the Nintendo Switch is actually quite simple and easy to program for, which is a good sign. Many other creators of engines have come out and said, you know, Unreal works on it, Unity works on it, CryEngine works on it, and a bunch of other engines as well are compatible to Switch, which is really good. So the second thing as well they felt that third parties were kind of iffy on was the online infrastructure. He said that they felt that they couldn't monetize their games through DLC and many other means, and that the online infrastructure itself, it wasn't up to the standard of other platforms. And when you think about it, you know, the Wii U was alright when it comes to the online. Mario Kart 8 worked just fine, Pokémon was alright, you know, the few online games that they had worked pretty well. The functionality wasn't there, like they didn't have things like cross-game chat or in-game chat and certain other group functionalities that other platforms have. But, you know, when it came to I want to play a Nintendo game online with random people and some of my friends, then it worked just fine for that. But if they're going to do what they're going to do now, which is charge for a subscription, which the pricing seems relatively reasonable, it's definitely a lot cheaper than PSN Plus and Xbox Live Gold. However, I'm a bit worried about the whole idea of they're going to give us a virtual console game and then take it away at the end of the month. I think they should change that and have it so you have access to the entire virtual console library. I would pay quite a decent amount of money per year if every year that you pay for the subscription, you got access to that virtual console library. I wouldn't mind too much for paying for online, because with PSN, for example, I don't like the idea of paying for online, especially as someone who owns a PC and who has played on Nintendo platforms where you didn't have to do that. However, I didn't really mind it as much because it's just become standard at this point, and they gave you other features that kind of justified the price a little bit. Obviously, as I said, it's still not something that I like doing, but having a couple of PSN games every month, having discounts every month, having online storage, I think kind of makes up for it in a way if you try and justify it that way. I think if Nintendo does that as well, where they give you functionality, they give you features that make sense and make the price not seem as egregious, I think people won't be turned away as much. But if the pricing of it is not what they have said, that it's approximately between $18 to $24, I think, around that much. For pounds, for your regional equivalent, you're gonna have to, you know, work that out. As I said, any numbers, if I get it wrong, will flash up on the screen. So we don't know exactly yet. We won't get any details, I think, until nearly the end of the year, which is when you'll start paying for online. But if the price isn't right, if the features aren't right, if the online infrastructure isn't up to standard, if we don't have things that we have come to expect and we have come to take for granted at this point when it comes to online functionality, if we don't have that kind of stuff, I feel that's going to be a massive hurdle that they're going to have to get over, and I think that could be a potential failing point for the Switch. Now, one of the issues with the Wii U, as I said, was the release window for games. It was the frequency of when games would come out. They had massive drought where you just didn't have software coming out. And I think some of that could be circumvented by third parties embracing the Switch, which hopefully they will. What we have heard about the system being capable of running all these engines and being easy to program for, and if it sells well as well, I think we'll see like a decent amount of third parties, way more than we've seen with the Wii U. But I think one of the big things Nintendo needs to do, and what Sony has done with the Vita to an extent, is embracing indies like Shovel Knight, Spelunky, Rogue Legacy, Hyper Light Drifter, and those kind of games, smaller indie games that it kind of invoke that, nostalgic old school feeling, but have something new going on. I think that would be really interesting to have those kind of games on the go. I'm definitely really looking forward to playing Binding of Isaac on my Switch, because I just really like playing roguelikes on my handheld. I've got a ton of roguelikes on my Vita, and that's just how I play them. So I think that is something that they should embrace. I think that would be something that could give them an advantage of, embracing indies and having a system that is easy to program for and that they can embrace. I also think as well that with the rise in popularity of couch co-op and couch competitive games like Samurai Gun, Overcooked, Towerfall, Lovers in a Dangerous Space-Time, and many other games like that, Dive Kick, Gang Beast, those types of games I think would work really well on the Switch due to the fact that you have the ability to sync them up together, through local multiplayer. You also have the ability to kind of detach both Joy-Cons and hand one Joy-Con to a friend and you hold one Joy-Con, and simple games like that could work really, really well. And I think in a in a social gathering or in a convention where there's a lot of downtime at times, just sitting around and maybe having a lunch or something, or like just kind of socializing, I think that could work really, really well. I think it would be really cool if you go to a convention and you go into a hotel and you and your mates just hanging around. Normally you might be watching some rubbish TV or something, and you can just pull out the Nintendo Switch and play some Overcooked together, or play some Dive Kick, or whatever kind of small indie couch cooperative couch competitive games. I think that could be something that could really help the Nintendo Switch. I also think as well that in regards to the third parties, it does seem like they've embraced third parties a little bit more. They've got a lot of Japanese third party games like Puyo Tetris, I Am Setsuna, Dragon Quest Heroes 1 and 2, but I think they need to talk more and be a little bit more open to Western third parties. I think if they want to catch more of a casual mainstream audience, they're going to need to get things like Red Dead Redemption 2 or Mass Effect Andromeda, or maybe Doom, some of the more older titles from like last year, Mirror's Edge, maybe the new Battlefront, the new Call of Duty, maybe get GTA 5 on there. These games may not necessarily be my cup of tea, but they are certainly games that sell millions and millions and could potentially bring in a more mainstream casual audience that maybe might have skipped a Nintendo console a few, maybe they just didn't know about the other Nintendo consoles because they didn't have those titles on there. And I think having the portability would be a massive selling point. I think a lot of people would like the fact that I get to play the new Mass Effect game, but I don't just get to play it like a normal console game, sitting on my couch, but I could play it on my commute to work, or I could play it on the bus to school or something like that. So I think that could definitely really help with Nintendo if they embrace more of those as some people like to say, quote unquote, normie titles. I hate using that term, but you understand what I mean. Finally, I think what will prevent the Switch from failing is them learning from the Wii U and learning from trying to avoid software droughts, trying to pad out in between the big releases with indie titles, with third parties, or maybe even smaller titles. One of the big problems I had with the Switch reveal was there was quite a few big titles that you would normally see on a console like a Wii U or a Wii or a GameCube or whatever. You didn't see the handheld type stuff. You didn't see stuff that you'd normally see on a 3DS or a DS or on a GBA or something like that. There wasn't a Rhythm Heaven, there wasn't a Picross, there wasn't that kind of smaller bite-sized game that you could just kind of quickly pop in, pop out that I could really think of. I guess Puyo Tetris, but that's on other platforms. It would have been really cool if maybe they showed off a new push mode, maybe they should have showed off a new Box Boy or a new Picross or anything like that was just this smaller bite-sized experience that doesn't take too long to develop and is something that people can just pop in, pop out and just kind of casually play. It would have been really good if they kind of embraced that, because Nintendo have fused the two development sides together. They have the handheld and they have the console development teams, and they're all working together now, so it would make sense if they embrace that a little bit more. I think another thing they need to learn from the Wii U as well is I think they need to learn about the marketing strategy. There were hardly any Wii U adverts at all that I remember. There were some for Mario Kart 8, there were some for Splatoon, but other than that I didn't really see a whole lot. And I think with this, the messaging of the Wii U just was so unclear, especially early on when people just didn't understand what the system was. They thought that it was just another accessory for the Wii. And with the Switch already, with the reveal trailer, and also with when they did the big reveal a month ago, they properly conveyed the message and it made sense and people understood where they were going with the system. And I think if they continue with that with their marketing strategies, I think if they continue letting consumers know what games are coming out, when they're coming coming out and what the deal is with these games, I think they'll do really well. I think that'll stop the Switch from failing, because I think one of the biggest issues with the Wii U is simply just the marketing just was terrible. It just didn't show off why you would buy a Wii U. It didn't show off what the system was all about. So that was a list of few things that I think will stop the Switch from failing, or things that Nintendo need to think about when trying to make sure they just find themselves in another situation that they did with the Wii U. If you have any other suggestions, I'd really appreciate it if you leave some of the comments, maybe any points I forgot to bring up. If you enjoyed this video, I'd definitely appreciate it if you give me a subscribe and a like. And with the new algorithm, that certainly helps a lot of YouTubers, especially starting ones. And if you enjoyed videos like this, I'd also appreciate you hitting that bell. It's the best way to get notifications for any of my new videos, since YouTube and their subscription system just doesn't seem to work very well these days. Appreciate it. Thank you for watching, and you know what? Take care of yourself.